I'm Jennifer. I'm here at California Citrus State Historic Park. I am an interpretive specialist, and today I'd like to talk to you about the native landscape in the Riverside area and much of Southern California. I'd like to talk to you about the original peoples who inhabited this land and who are still here today. And I'd like to tell you some of the really ingenious ways that they found they could use different plants and things they found in their environment. Now, the predominant tribe who was here before the Spaniards ever arrived, right, were the Cahuilla. There were several different tribes in the area, but like I said, predominantly the Cahuilla. Their culture and traditions go back hundreds, if not thousands of years, and they're still here, and many of them still know and practice the traditions of their ancestors. One of those traditions is called bird songs. They sing these bird songs, they're really beautiful, and they use them to tell stories, and sometimes these stories are very, very old, but they're not my stories to tell. So when this video is done, I recommend that you look them up and see for yourself. Now, like I said, this culture is quite old, and an important part of culture is food. It's probably my favorite part. So the Cahuilla in this area relied on acorns, and many other tribes did as well. And acorns come from oak trees. So I am standing under a Pacific Coast live oak. They are native to the area in places where you have a little bit more water, and you can grind the acorns up into a powder, and they can make porridge out of it, or kind of flatbreads, similar to how we use grain for flour or corn for cornmeal, right? Now, this is one example, but it's definitely not the only example, and I don't think it's the coolest example. So we're gonna head up a trail a little bit, and we're gonna take a look at more plants that you would have seen in the native landscape here. Come on. Okay, so we've made it up the trail a little way, and I'd like you to take a look at the landscape behind me, ignoring the palm trees. So on the hillside here, you see a lot of kind of short, shrubby bushes. It's really thick. It covers a lot of the ground. This is called chaparral, and this is what Southern California would look like without a lot of human intervention. It's actually considered its own biome because there are so many plants and insects and other living things that have adapted specifically to this environment and this kind of plant life. It does burn fairly easily, and in fact the Cahuilla would manage the landscape and clear brush that had built up and that was in their way using what we call controlled burns. That's kind of neat. So the Cahuilla and other Native Americans in this area would have used the landscape here rather than forcing the landscape to adapt to their needs. They tended to build their life around what was available. And we have a few plants right in this area that they would use for different purposes, and I'd like to show you a few of those now. So we're going to head this way, and I'm going to give you a close-up view of these plants. Okay, first up is buckwheat. Buckwheat is easy to recognize by these rust-colored, kind of brown flowers, right? Everybody knows buckwheat, even if they don't know that they know buckwheat, because it's everywhere. And Native Americans in the area, including the Cahuilla, had multiple different uses for this plant. For example, they would grind up some of the seeds into a powder and use it to bake breads and that sort of thing. They also had medicinal uses for the buckwheat. You can make a tea out of the leaves and the roots, and they would use that to treat headaches, to treat tummy aches, and what's really cool is they used it to prevent heart disease. And in fact, scientists have found with recent research that buckwheat does contain chemicals that help prevent heart disease. That's pretty amazing. Now the next that I'd like to show you is called California sagebrush. This is it right here. We're going to rotate a little. Here we are, California sagebrush. Now, California sagebrush was considered one of the most important medicinal plants for many Native American groups in the area. The Cahuilla used it to help with coughs and colds and even asthma. When you rub on these leaves, they release a scent that almost smells to me like Vicks Vapor Rub. It has kind of a minty or menthol smell. And so it's unsurprising that they used it sort of the way that we use Vicks Vapor Rub. Other tribes also used it for pain relief. They would grind it up, put it into a cloth or some kind of weaving, and sit it on their back where it was sore, that sort of thing. And we're back. So those are just a few examples of the way that folks could use the landscape here. Like I said, often ingenious ways, right? The fact that they knew that these plants could prevent heart disease way before other cultures did, that's pretty amazing, right? Now there's a lot of here that we don't know a lot about because we don't necessarily learn a lot about it. We don't recognize what we have in the landscape that we could use. We often don't recognize that many of the original people who were here are still here, and they obviously have a lot of things that they could teach us and show us if we're just willing to listen. So on that note, thank you for listening to me. Again, we're at California Citrus State Historic Park. I'm standing in front of Chaparral, the native landscape to Southern California. And we've learned about the different ways that the original peoples in the area, Native Americans, including the Cahuilla tribe, would have used the plants that they had available in their landscape. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you have a great day.